Hello and welcome to Service Design Part 1. My name is Lowell Amos. I'm an ITIL expert, and today I'm going to cover some basic principles of service design. In this lesson, we're going to talk about the overall objectives and goals of the service design phase of the ITIL lifecycle. We'll try and tie that to understanding business value and how service design links to provide business objectives defined earlier in service strategy. We'll talk about the 5 important aspects of design and the service design package, which is the principal output of the service design phase of the life cycle. We'll revisit the 4 P's that we talked about in earlier lessons and cover some basic terminology. So let's get started. The goals and objectives of service design are to take a business case and convert that into the specific requirements or components of utility and warranty that are required by a new or changed service. We will capture that information within a service design package. The objectives of service design are to design services that are consistent with other services. We use a holistic approach to make sure that the designs that we come up with are not only sufficient for the specific service, but also integrate into the other technical and management architectures across the organization. We want to make sure that we enact and conform to policies and procedures in the governance framework, and make sure that existing metrics and measurement systems are in place to evaluate the performance of the service over time. This provides consistency within design standards and allows us to realize some of the benefits of the service design phase, which are lower operational risks to the organization, as well as improved time to market. Some of the components or business value of the service design phase of the life cycle is reduced total cost of ownership. It improves quality, consistency, and business alignment, improves performance and IT governance, makes services faster and easier to implement, and gives more effective performance management and processes. This is the idea of service design. If we look at the analogy of building a house, in the service strategy phase, we developed a business case. We have a budget, a return on investment target, and an understanding of what business outcomes we're trying to accomplish. In the service design phase, we're building the architectural blueprint and defining how many bedrooms, bathrooms, living room, how big the kitchen will be, and more specific details. And we're going to tie that all to the idea of utility and warranty, which are the principal components of value. So there are 5 aspects of design that should be considered. The first are the service solutions for the new or changed services, and this makes sense. What is it that the service that we're designing is designed to do? What business outcomes does it help facilitate? Another important design aspect are the management information systems and tools, especially the service portfolio and service catalog, that need to be developed in order to manage the service. What management and technical architectures need to be in place? What are the design standards or policies that we need to conform to? And what processes are required in order to effectively transition the service into live operations and then run it once it's there? Last but not least are the measurement method and metrics. How do we know when the service is performing as expected? And more importantly, how do we know when it's not? And what actions can we put in place to take corrective action when necessary? These are the critical aspects of design, and we're going to cover each one in more detail. The service solutions. This is not just about the service itself, but it also includes the documentation of the requirements, the performance criteria, and what resources and capabilities are required to build, implement, and manage the service over time. We'll define all of those components within the service design package. The service management or service portfolio as a critical component of the service management processes are also important to consider. What systems and tools are required for the management and control of that service through its life cycle? If we consider a service as moving through a life cycle, which is the ITIL point of view, how do we know when it's ready to move into production or service operations? And over time, how do we evaluate that service and know when it's time to potentially retire it or replace it with other services? This is the purview of the service portfolio. Further, management and technology architectures are important to consider. What technology and management architectures, tools are required to support the service? Do we need an incident management ticketing system? And do we have one? That's a question of management architecture and technology architecture. What's the design standard for the service from a technology point of view that's consistent with the other services that exist within the organization? And process design. What processes do we need to design, transition, operate, and improve the service? Do they exist or do they need to be constructed? And certainly, last but not least, is the measurement system. Do we have the measurement systems in place in order to evaluate the service over time? And are those measurements appropriate and consistent with the performance or utility and warranty combinations that we're designing? All of this should be captured within the service design package. The service design package documents and defines all aspects of the IT service and its requirements through each stage of the life cycle, not just the design phase. So the document should address things such as processes for support, such as incident and problem management within the service operations phase. It should speak to the release approach. Is this a phased implementation or a big bang? As well as all the other processes required to build, deploy, manage, operate, and run the service over time. Here are some of the types of information that's included within the service design package. We start with business and service requirements. Some of these may be defined in the service strategy phase and driven through more clarity in service design. We'll talk about the design and topology. What does the design look like from a technical and management point of view? What's the user acceptance criteria? How do we know when users have accepted the new service as the new way of doing things? What's the service transition plan? How do we plan to build and operate and move this service from a service design package to something real and tangible that the business can make use of in service operations? What's the service operational plan? How do we plan to manage and run the service over time? What are the service contacts? Who will own this service and be accountable and responsible for managing it? And how are we going to measure it? One point the service design package should consider is also the organizational impact. This includes things like training or education or other components to move the service from a human side into live operations. It's not enough to build a service. We also have to consider the users and how they will make use of it. There are 4 dimensions of service design called the 4 Ps. They are people, processes, products, and partners. Making use of the 4 Ps is critical to the service design phase, and the idea of understanding each dimension and how they come together to build a robust design for a service is the principal attribute of the service design phase. What's the impact to people and what resources are required? What processes need to be put in place? What products or technology components are necessary? And who are the partners or suppliers or outside vendors that we have to make use of as components of the services that we're building? So let's take a minute and review some basic terminology before we move on to more details of the service design phase. Let's start with supplier. A supplier is defined as an external third party responsible for providing goods and services required to deliver IT services. These are the partners, one of the 4 Ps. Service level agreements. These are written agreements between a service provider and a customer that documents the agreed upon levels of services. The key learning here is that the service level agreement is between the IT service provider and a customer. A contract or underpinning contract is a binding legal commitment between IT and its providers. It should be in support of the service level agreements. An operational level agreement is an internal agreement between one part of the IT organization and another. An OLA supports the IT service provider's delivery of IT services to customers, and it should underpin the SLA. For instance, an SLA may be written between an IT service provider and a customer for something like availability, whereas an operating level agreement would be written between 2 internal organizations. These should be in alignment with the SLA and also the underpinning contract. All 3 of those types of agreements must be in place and support each other if good service is to be delivered to the customer. An important and critical understanding: the difference between the SLA, the OLA, and the underpinning contract are the parties involved. An SLA is written between a service provider and a customer. An OLA is an internal agreement, between two departments or groups within the service providing organization, and an underpinning contract is between the IT service provider and its suppliers. A service catalog. We'll talk more about this in service catalog management, but it is a written statement of the available IT services, its options, prices, and other attributes that a customer might view. So let's review. Today we talked about the service design goals and objectives and its business value in the form of reduced total cost of ownership, improved quality, better performance, and time to market. We covered the 5 aspects of service design, and these are important things to understand if you plan to sit for the Foundations exam. The service design package is the document where we record all the dimensions of design that we covered in the 5 design aspects. We talked about the 4 P's of products, partners, people, and processes, and covered some basic terms. This is the grounding information of service design and will be built upon in future lessons. I hope you learned something, and I look forward to talking to you in the next lesson.